Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Humanity's warship destroys without mercy, turning planets to wastelands. The enemy fleet hovered in the darkness of space, their sleek ships forming a blockade around the besieged planet of Vlok. For centuries, the Vashari Dominion had ruled this sector with an iron grip, enslaving weaker species, crushing rebellions, and expanding their empire with ruthless efficiency. They had never feared any foe until humanity arrived. The UN nemesis loomed in the void, a monster of war forged from Earth's unrelenting defiance. It was unlike any ship the Vashari had ever encountered. Twice the size of their largest dreadnought, its hull was blackened by the scars of 100 battles and bristled with weapons capable of tearing apart entire fleets. The name Nemesis was whispered like a death sentence among the alien ranks. From the bridge, Admiral Elias Varian stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze fixed on the view screen. The Vashari fleet was vast, 300 warships against his lone battleship. The odds were, by all logical measures, impossible. Except humanity never cared for logic when it came to war. "Admiral Commander Sarah Holt," he said as her voice came through steady, "they're hailing us." Varian exhaled slowly. "Let them speak." The alien's face flickered onto the screen, a reptilian creature draped in ceremonial armor, its golden scales reflecting the dim light. High Warlord Kesh of the Vashari Dominion glared at Varian with undisguised contempt. "Humans," Kesh hissed, "you defy the Dominion, yet you stand alone. Surrender your vessel, and I may grant your species a merciful death." Varian chuckled, shaking his head. "You don't understand, do you?" His voice was almost amused. "We're not here to negotiate." Kesh's slitted eyes narrowed. "Then you have sealed your fate." Varian raised an eyebrow. "No, Warlord, you have." With a slight nod, he gave the command, "Fire." The Nemesis roared to life. Its main cannon, an experimental weapon designed to harness the destructive power of a dying star, unleashed a beam of searing white energy. The first Vashari battleship in its path didn't just explode. It disintegrated, torn apart at the atomic level. The rest of the Vashari fleet had mere seconds to react before the Nemesis rained hell upon them. Its rail guns fired at impossible velocities, ripping through shields as though they were paper, while swarms of autonomous drone fighters poured from its hangars, weaving between enemy ships and tearing them apart with surgical precision. Kesh's expression shifted from arrogance to horror. "Impossible," he snarled. "One ship cannot, one human warship is all it takes." Varian interrupted coldly. "You should have learned that when we burned your last colony to the ground. The battle was not a battle, it was a massacre." One by one, Vashari warships met their end in blinding explosions. Escape pods were ignored. Mercy was not on the agenda. Humanity had seen what the Dominion did to their prisoners. Entire colonies reduced to labor camps, civilians experimented on, children taken and never seen again. This was not just war, it was vengeance. Varian watched as the enemy fleet crumbled, their command structure dissolving into chaos. The Vashari had always believed they were the apex predators of the galaxy, but they had never encountered humanity at war, and humanity did not forgive. As the last enemy vessel erupted into a fireball, Varian turned his attention to the planet below. Vlok was a fortress world, home to billions of Vashari. It had once been a symbol of their might, and now it was simply a target. "Sir," Holt said hesitantly, "orders." Varian's voice was devoid of hesitation. "Glass it." The Nemesis began its final act, orbital bombardment that rained down upon the planet, turning cities into craters, forests into ash, and rivers into boiling steam. The screams of the Vashari echoed through intercepted transmissions before silence took their place. A wasteland just like the countless human colonies the Dominion had destroyed before. Varian turned away from the screen. "Set course for the next Dominion world. I order this war doesn't end until they beg for extinction." And with that, the Nemesis disappeared into the void, leaving only fire and ruin in its wake. The Nemesis sailed through the black abyss of space, its colossal frame nearly silent as it moved toward its next target. The bridge was eerily calm despite the destruction they had wrought upon Vlok. The enemy's desperate cries for help had already faded into the background of war. Admiral Varian stood motionless, staring out at the endless void. His reflection in the reinforced glass looked almost alien to him, his once sharp features now hardened by the weight of command. He had long abandoned the idea of peace. Peace was a lie. The Dominion had spat at humanity while putting their boots on Earth's throat. "Sir," Commander Holt's voice cut through the silence, "our next target is Tryon 7. Intelligence suggests it's a major supply hub for the Dominion's core fleets." Varian didn't turn. "What's the estimated population?" Holt hesitated. "Roughly 20 million. The bridge remained silent, tension thickening the air. 20 million Vashari, soldiers, civilians, workers, children. A hesitation hung in the air, a moment of humanity clawing at the crew's conscience. "Good," Varian finally said. "If we disrupt their supply lines, we'll cripple their war efforts." Holt nodded but said nothing. She had been with Varian since the first retaliation against the Dominion and had seen firsthand the atrocities committed against humanity. There was no room for doubt, no space for mercy. Mercy was what had let the Dominion expand unchecked. Mercy was what had cost them Earth's outer colonies. A transmission interrupted their thoughts. "Sir, one of the officers reported High Warlord Kesh survived. He wants to talk." Varian smirked and patched him through. The reptilian warlord's face flickered onto the screen again. This time there was no arrogance, only barely contained fury and fear. "You will suffer for what you've done, human," Kesh growled, his voice filled with venom. "The Dominion does not fall so easily." Varian leaned forward slightly, his expression cold. "It already has, you just haven't realized it yet." Kesh bared his fangs. "You are monsters." Varian let out a short laugh, void of humor. "Monsters, you enslaved our people, you burned our worlds, and now when we return the favor, you want to cry foul. No, Warlord, you made this war, we're just finishing it." Kesh's claws curled into fists. "Humanity will not survive this. The Dominion will strike back, you won't have the chance." Varian's voice was sharp as a blade. "This is not a war of survival for us, this is extermination." Kesh's face twisted with rage, but Varian didn't give him the satisfaction of another word. He cut the transmission and turned back to his crew. "Prepare the Hellstorm missiles. I want Tryon 7 even wiped from the maps." No one questioned the order. The Nemesis pressed forward, carrying humanity's wrath across the stars. It slipped through the void, silent and unrelenting. Tryon 7 loomed ahead, a planet of steel and industry, its surface covered in sprawling shipyards and supply depots that fed the Dominion's war machine. This was no ordinary target. This was a world designed to fuel their empire's endless expansion, a hub of resources that had supported the enslavement of entire species. But today, it would burn. On the bridge, Admiral Varian watched the tactical display. Thousands of Dominion vessels cluttered Tryon 7's orbit, transport ships, refineries, battleships, and dry docks. The planet's defensive fleet was nowhere near as large as Velox had been. The Dominion hadn't expected a direct assault. A mistake. "Status of the Hellstorm missiles, Varian?" asked his voice, calm and measured. "They're fully armed and ready," Commander Holt confirmed. "We can wipe out the planet's atmosphere in a single strike." Varian nodded. "Fire." The Nemesis came alive. From its underbelly, massive silos opened, and the Hellstorm payloads were launched. Hundreds of missiles streaked toward Tryon 7, each containing a payload designed not for precision but for annihilation. Planetary shields flared to life, but it was futile. The missiles didn't aim for cities, they detonated in the upper atmosphere. The sky turned red, then black as firestorms swept across the world. Below, chaos reigned. Factories crumbled, supply depots exploded, and massive orbital shipyards broke apart, sending flaming debris crashing down on the cities. Smoke choked the air, blocking out the sun. Dominion forces tried to fight back. A swarm of defense ships surged toward the Nemesis, desperate to protect their crumbling world. "Incoming enemy fire," an officer reported. "Deploy the drones, return fire." The swarm of enemy ships barely made it halfway before the Nemesis responded. Drone fighters surged forth, moving like a plague of mechanical death, cutting through the enemy ranks with brutal efficiency. The ship's rail guns and laser batteries opened fire, slicing apart the Dominion's defense forces as though they were nothing more than insects. The Dominion's command centers sent out desperate distress calls. Messages flooded into the human battleship, pleading for surrender, for mercy, for anything other than what was coming. Varian ignored them all. "You never showed us mercy," he muttered under his breath. He watched as the planet turned to ash. Tryon 7 was no longer a world, it was a graveyard. Silence fell over the bridge save for the hum of the ship's systems. The battle was over. There was no celebration, no cheers of victory. Only the cold realization that this war had no end until the Dominion itself was nothing more than a whisper in history. Varian exhaled, set course for the next target. The nemesis disappeared into the void, leaving behind only smoke, ruin, and the dying screams of an empire. The bridge remained silent. No one spoke or moved as the screen still showed the burning wreckage of Tryon 7, the massive industrial world reduced to a wasteland in mere hours. Even from orbit, the scars were visible, craters where entire cities once stood, firestorms raging through the ruins. The once thriving supply hub of the Dominion was now nothing more than a drifting corpse. Admiral Elias Varian let out a slow breath. There was no satisfaction in what they had done, no joy, only necessity. "They're calling us monsters," Commander Holt said quietly, reading intercepted Dominion transmissions. "Their military channels are in chaos. Some are calling for all-out retaliation. Others," she hesitated, "others are already speaking of surrender." Varian scoffed. "Surrender? After what they did to us? No, they don't get that option." His eyes were cold and distant. Humanity had been enslaved for decades. When Earth had finally fought back, it wasn't out of ambition, it was out of survival. The war had started with hope, it had turned into vengeance. "Set course for JIS Prime," Varian ordered. A murmur ran through the crew. JIS Prime wasn't just another Dominion world. It was one of their core planets, a cultural and political heart of their empire. A direct assault would send a message across the galaxy. Nowhere was safe. "Sir," Lieutenant Morrow, the communications officer, spoke up. "We're receiving a transmission, but not from the Dominion." Varian frowned. "Who is it?" "It's from the Tanny Confederacy. They're offering a ceasefire mediation between us and the Dominion. The Tanny were neutral in this war. They had watched from the sidelines as the bloodshed unfolded, unwilling to intervene, but now they are." The screen flickered, and a Talani diplomat appeared, a tall, Avon-like creature with silver feathers and piercing golden eyes. "Admiral Varian," the Tanny envoy began, his voice smooth and calculated, "we have watched this conflict unfold, and we urge you to reconsider your actions. The Dominion has suffered enough." Varian raised an eyebrow. "Enough? Were you there when the Dominion burned our colonies, when they slaughtered our people like cattle? Where was your intervention then?" The Tanny envoy did not flinch. "We understand your anger, Admiral, but this war has reached a turning point. If you continue it, it will not be war, it will be extermination." Varian leaned forward, his gaze cold and unwavering. "That's the idea." A long silence followed. The Tanny envoy studied him, searching for a hint of hesitation, some remnant of humanity's old self before the war had changed them, but there was none. "Admiral," the envoy finally said, "the galaxy is watching. If you destroy the Dominion completely, humanity will not be seen as liberators. You will be seen as conquerors. And one day, someone will rise to do to you what you are doing to them." Varian smirked, though there was no humor in it. "Let them try," he replied. The screen went green and then black as the transmission ended. The bridge was silent. No one questioned the Admiral's decision, no one argued. They had all lost too much to care about diplomacy. Holt shifted uncomfortably. "Do you think the other empires will intervene?" "Deep inside, they won't move unless we force their hand. And by the time they decide, it will already be too late." The nemesis jumped to FTL, streaking through the stars like a shadow of death. JIS Prime awaited. The nemesis emerged from FTL like a phantom of destruction, slipping into the orbit of JIS Prime, one of the Dominion's core worlds. This wasn't some distant colony or a supply hub. It was the beating heart of the Dominion Empire, a world teeming with billions of their kind. It was their pride, their history, their culture, and soon it would burn. Admiral Varian stood at the command console, watching the massive planet fill the bridge's viewport. JIS Prime was beautiful in its own way. Covered in sprawling cities with towering spires of obsidian and gold, its structures sleek and technologically advanced. But beneath all the grandeur, it was still the home of slavers and tyrants. "Commander Holt," Varian announced, They're hailing us. Sir High Chancellor Raka himself, the Dominion's leader, she reported. Varian nodded and put him through. The screen flickered to life, revealing Raka, a towering reptilian figure with dark emerald scales and piercing yellow eyes. Unlike Warlord Kesh, who had snarled and spat threats, Raka sat calmly on his ornate throne, watching Varian with a calculated expression. Admiral Varian, Raka said smoothly, you stand at the gates of my world. What will you do? Varian's face remained emotionless. What I have done to every world before this, Raka nodded as if he had expected that answer. We underestimated you. We saw humanity as a lesser species, weak, divided, but now I see something else. I see a force that even the Dominion cannot contain. Varian tilted his head slightly. If you're about to beg, don't waste my time. Raka's lips curled into something resembling a smirk. Beg? No, but I will offer you something no human leader has ever had before, Dominion surrender. A murmur ran through the bridge crew. Even Holt's usually icy demeanor cracked for a moment. Varian's eyes narrowed. Explain. Raka leaned forward. Withdraw your forces, stop your war. In return, we will recognize humanity as an equal power. The Dominion will cease all hostilities, return all human prisoners, and sign a non-aggression pact that will last for generations. Silence fell. It was everything humanity had fought for, everything the war had been about. The nightmare could finally end, with Earth victorious and humanity free. Varian exhaled slowly, his expression unreadable. And what about justice? Raka blinked. Justice for the billions you enslaved, for the colonies you burned, for the families you ripped apart. Varian's voice was calm but razor-sharp. You expect us to just shake hands and move on? The Dominion leader hesitated for a moment before spreading his clawed hands. We cannot change the past, Admiral, but we can shape the future. If you destroy us now, you do not just kill an empire, you create a vacuum, and something worse will rise to fill it. You think yourself the harbinger of justice, but tell me, when does justice become vengeance? Varian stared at him unblinkingly. For a moment, something flickered in his expression, something almost human, and then it was gone. We passed the line between justice and vengeance a long time ago, Varian said quietly. Holt stiffened. Sir, are you saying, fire the Hellstorm missiles? A final silence ensued. The death of diplomacy, Admiral Raka said in a quieter voice. Do not do this. Varian held his gaze. Goodbye, Chancellor. The screen cut off and the missiles were launched. The Nemesis tore through the void, a specter of death on its final approach. The Dominion homeworld, Coron Prime, lay ahead, a planet that had ruled the galaxy for centuries, the heart of an empire now awaiting the fate of those before it. The end had come. Admiral Varian stood at the bridge, his expression carved from stone. The fiery wreckage of JIS Prime still burned in his mind, but there was no regret, no hesitation. The war had started long ago, with Dominion warships glassing human colonies and reducing entire civilizations to slaves. Now, humanity was merely repaying the debt in full. Enemy fleet detected, Commander Holt reported. Their last line of defense is estimated at 3,000 ships, all converging on our position. Varian exhaled. All that's left of their once mighty armada, Coron Prime has thrown everything into this final stand. Battleships, cruisers, swarms of fighters. The Dominion ruled through force and fear for centuries, but now, faced with extinction, they have no choice but to fight to the last. They're hailing us, Lieutenant Morrow said. Let me guess, Varian muttered, more pleas for mercy. No, sir, Morrow replied in a grim voice. They say they will fight to the last warrior, no surrender. A smirk played at the corner of Varian's lips. For once, they understand us. A moment of silence settled over the bridge. There was no need for grand speeches, no need for theatrics. Everyone aboard the Nemesis knew what they were about to do. This was not a battle, this was an execution. Engage the void, Varian commanded. The Nemesis moved like a predator, its weapons ripping through the Dominion fleet with precision and brutality. Drone swarms danced through the battlefield, cutting apart enemy fighters like insects trapped in a storm. Its rail guns thundered, spewing tungsten slugs at near-light speed, shattering hulls like paper. Dominion ships fought back with everything they had. Plasma beams lanced through the darkness, and missile barrages rained toward the Nemesis, but it was hopeless. Humanity's warship was a fortress of destruction, its defenses unbreakable, its firepower unmatched. Varian watched as the enemy fleet crumbled one by one. Their battleships fell, command ships detonated in blinding flashes, and their crews were silenced in an instant. Some Dominion vessels, seeing the inevitability of defeat, tried to flee. The Nemesis did not allow it. "No survivors," Varian ordered, as torpedoes chased down the stragglers and turned their ships into floating wreckage. The Dominion, who had once terrorized the stars, now had their greatest fleet reduced to debris. Coron Prime lay defenseless. "Prepare the Hellstorm missiles," Varian commanded. Holt hesitated. "Sir, there are billions down there, civilians." Varian's jaw tightened. "Did they spare ours?" Holt said nothing. She knew the answer. The missiles launched. Coron Prime's atmosphere turned to fire. The planet's grand cities, monuments to an empire that had enslaved species across the stars, collapsed beneath waves of destruction. Plasma storms erupted, oceans boiled, and the land itself cracked under the weight of devastation. Humanity had not just won the war, they had erased the Dominion from existence. Varian turned away from the screen. "It's done," he said quietly. Silence filled the bridge. The war that had defined their generation, that had burned through entire civilizations, was over. For the first time in history, humanity stood alone as the dominant force in the galaxy. Varian let out a slow breath. There was no victory song, no celebration, just the quiet hum of the Nemesis as it disappeared into the stars, leaving nothing but ash in its wake. The void of space stretched endlessly before them, vast and indifferent. The Nemesis drifted in silence, its weapons cooling, its mission complete. Coron Prime, once the heart of the Dominion, was now a graveyard, a smoldering ruin where billions had drawn their final breath. No cries remained, no fleets, no desperate last stands. Humanity had finished what it started. Admiral Varian stood at the bridge, staring at the dead world below. He had imagined this moment for years. The vengeance, the thrill of triumph, the satisfaction of knowing that humanity had avenged its dead. But now, looking at the barren wasteland they had created, there was only emptiness. Holt approached him cautiously. "Sir, we've intercepted transmissions from across the galaxy. The other empires have seen what we've done." She lowered her voice. "Some are calling for an alliance against us, others are silent, watching, waiting." Varian closed his eyes briefly. Of course, this was inevitable. Humanity has not just destroyed an enemy, they have reshaped the balance of power. The galaxy is vast, filled with countless species, some stronger, some weaker, all now forced to reevaluate their place. They fear us. Holt continued, "They see what we're capable of." Varian exhaled. "Good." Silence lingered between them, thick and heavy. "What now?" Holt finally asked. "We've won, there's no one left to fight." Varian turned away from the viewport, his expression unreadable. "There will always be someone left to fight across the galaxy." Distant empires whispered in fear. Governments held secret meetings, debating whether humanity was now the greatest threat to existence itself. Some would submit, others would prepare for war. It didn't matter. Humanity had risen, and it would never bow again. The Nemesis cut through the darkness of space like a silent wraith. The war was over. The Dominion, the great empire that had once ruled the galaxy, was now nothing but dust and ruin. And yet the galaxy did not celebrate. Varian stood at the command console, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of known star systems. One by one, reports trickled in from human intelligence networks, alien fleets mobilizing, fortifications being reinforced, uneasy truces forming between long-standing enemies. The message was clear. The galaxy was terrified. Humanity was no longer a minor species fighting for survival. It was now the dominant force, the apex predator among the stars. The rest of the galaxy was trying to decide whether to submit or strike first. Commander Holt approached again. "We're receiving diplomatic messages from multiple species. Some are congratulating us, some are less diplomatic." Varian smirked. "Let me guess, they call us monsters." Holt nodded. "Some are calling us the butchers of Coron, while others are demanding answers, asking if we intend to conquer them next." Varian let out a slow breath, his fingers tapping against the console. "And what do you think?" he asked. Holt hesitated. "I think they're scared, sir. I think they believe we'll do to them what we did to the Dominion." Varian turned his gaze toward the viewport, watching the endless stretch of space, a space in which he had spent his entire career fighting for survival, for vengeance. Now that the war was over, he wasn't sure what was left. "We send a message back," he said finally. "What do we tell them?" Holt straightened. Varian. His expression was cold and unreadable. We tell them the truth. Humanity will not start wars, but if they raise a hand against us, we will finish them. Holt gave a slow nod of understanding and turned to relay the message. But before she could take a step, another alert flashed on the screen. "Sir," Lieutenant Morrow called out from the comm station, "we're detecting a large-scale energy surge in deep space. Unknown origin." Varian frowned. "Explain." Morrow's hands moved swiftly across the controls as he analyzed the data. "It's not a fleet, not a weapon, it's something different. A gravitational anomaly is forming outside of mapped star systems. Whatever it is, it's big." Varian's brow furrowed. "How big?" Morrow hesitated. "Large enough to destabilize spacetime in the surrounding systems." "This isn't just some anomaly, it's a rupture." The bridge went silent. Varian exchanged a glance with Holt. They had fought the Dominion, crushed their empire, and now, just as the war had ended, something new was emerging. "Location?" Varian asked. "Far beyond any explored territory," Morrow answered. "Deep space past the galactic rim." Varian nodded slowly. "Then we investigate, prepare the fleet." Holt stiffened. "Sir, we just ended one war. Are we really about to rush headfirst into another unknown?" Varian turned to her, his expression calm but resolute. "We didn't survive the Dominion just to cower in the dark. Whatever's out there, we face it." The Nemesis adjusted course. Its engines roared to life. "Humanity has won the war," Varian announced. "Now it is time to see what lies beyond." The Nemesis moved through the void, its engines humming softly as it ventured into uncharted space. Behind it, a fleet of humanity's finest warships followed in tight formation, silent, prepared, and watching. The war with the Dominion was over, but now something new loomed ahead, an anomaly. Admiral Varian stood at the bridge, his gaze locked on the holographic display. The readings were unlike anything they had encountered before. A gravitational rift, larger than any known celestial body, pulsed at the edge of the galaxy. Space itself seemed to ripple around it, distorting the fabric of reality. "Status?" Varian asked, standing beside Commander Holt, who shook her head. "Still no known origin, no signals, no transmissions, just energy and a lot of it." Lieutenant Morrow, stationed at the sensor console, leaned forward. "Sir, we're detecting movement within the anomaly." Varian's eyes narrowed. "Define movement." Morrow's fingers danced across the controls as enhanced visuals appeared on the display. The image flickered, revealing a swirling mass of darkness. Then something shifted. Shadows coalesced into shapes. Unnatural and massive silhouettes appeared, and what could only be ships emerged from the distortion. Everyone on the bridge froze. "Unknown vessels detected," Morrow confirmed, his voice tight. "Size, impossible. Some of them are larger than entire cities." The Nemesis had faced behemoth-class Dominion warships before, but this was different. These things were not just large. They were unnatural, shifting between states of solidity and void, as if the laws of physics barely applied. A voice crackled over the fleet-wide comms. "This is Captain Darnell of the Vanguard. What the hell are we looking at?" Varian stared at the screen. "Something old," Holt swallowed hard. "Sir, they're moving toward us." Varian clenched his jaw. "Comms, try to hail them." Morrow initiated an open-frequency transmission. "This is the United Terran Navy. Identify yourselves." There was silence, then a sound, not words, not static, a deep, resonant noise like a chorus of voices speaking in layered frequencies. It wasn't a language, it was something deeper, something felt rather than heard, a presence pressing into their minds. The bridge crew stiffened. Morrow shuddered, clutching her head. I can't," she stammered. "Cut transmission," Varian ordered immediately. The sound stopped, but a lingering unease remained in the air. Holt exhaled sharply. "Sir, what the hell was that?" Varian didn't answer. His instincts screamed that whatever lay beyond that rift was not something humanity had ever encountered before, not even in myths, not in the oldest of alien records. This was beyond the Dominion, beyond war. "Energy spike," Morrow yelled. "They're charging weapons." The bridge exploded into action. Alarms blared as the massive shadow ships surged forward, their forms twisting through space with an unnatural speed. "All ships battle stations," Varian commanded. "Open fire!" The Nemesis unleashed its Hellrail guns in rapid succession, spewing tungsten slugs at near-light speed while its plasma batteries roared, sending superheated destruction toward the incoming threat. The fleet followed suit, their weapons lighting up the void. For a moment it seemed that humanity would do what it always did, Fight, conquer, survive. Then the shadows struck back. Lances of pure blackness lashed out, consuming light itself. The first wave of human ships was torn apart, their hulls crumbling into nothingness before even registering damage. A Dominion fleet would have been obliterated instantly. But humanity was not like the Dominion, its adaptive shielding held strong. Varian barked, redirect energy to defensive arrays. The Nemesis shifted its barriers, reforming in real time to counter the unknown energy signatures. The surviving ships did the same, holding formation. Humanity was adaptable, it always had been. The battle raged in the abyss, fire and darkness clashing as the Nemesis weaved between attacks, countering with overwhelming firepower. But for every enemy vessel destroyed, more emerged from the rift. Holt's face went pale. "Sir, there's no end to them." Varian gritted his teeth. "They destroyed the Dominion, and now they're fighting something even worse. For the first time in a long, long time, I'm not sure if humanity will survive." The void was a battleground of fire and shadow. Humanity's fleet fought with relentless fury, adapting, countering, surviving, but the enemy was endless. For every shadow ship torn apart by the Nemesis's guns, more emerged from the rift, shifting between dimensions, absorbing damage that should have obliterated them. Admiral Varian gripped the console, his mind racing. He had never faced an enemy like this. Not even the Dominion had possessed such unnatural resilience. Humanity had waged war across the stars, but this was something different, something beyond war. Shields were at 30%, Holt called out urgently. "If we don't retreat, we can't." "Retreat," Varian cut her off sharply. "If we run, they follow, and if they reach human space, we lose everything." A heavy moment of silence fell between them. The reality was sinking in, the fleet couldn't win this battle in a conventional sense. Morrow's voice cracked over the chaos. "Sir, the rift, there's a destabilization occurring." Varian turned sharply. "Explain." Morrow's hands moved rapidly across the controls. "It's as if their presence is tied to the anomaly. They're using it as their entry point. If we overload it, we might cut them off." Varian's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Precisely." Holt's expression darkened. "How exactly do we do that?" Varian's gaze flickered to the status of the Nemesis. The ship was battered, its shields flickering and its weapons burning hot, but its core was still intact. Humanity's warships were built for devastation, and nothing was more devastating than a controlled annihilation. He exhaled slowly. "We take the Nemesis into the rift." The bridge went silent. Holt turned to him, incredulous. "That's suicide." Varian's lips curled into a grim smile. "That's war." Morrow's voice wavered. "Sir, if we detonate our core at the right frequency, it might be enough to collapse the anomaly. But that would mean this warship completes its mission. It's a one-way trip." "The Nemesis was built to win wars," Varian stated steadily. "And that's exactly what it's going to do." Holt's jaw clenched. "We don't even know if this will work. We could be throwing ourselves into oblivion for nothing." Varian turned to the viewport, watching the endless tide of shadow. "Then we do what we must. Humanity has fought too long to now cower in the darkness."